Hello, this is Ralph K. Ginorio. Give me a few minutes and I'll suggest an idea hopefully worth considering. What would be the results of an Obama victory? Well, on the domestic front, a continuance of the disastrous Federal Reserve policy of quantitative easing. For 3 times over the last 2 years, Obama has pressured Brent Bernanke at the Federal Reserve to print huge amounts of paper money without adding an iota of value backing up that money. In the basic laws of economics, in the basic laws of supply and demand, the more scarce something is and the more valuable it is, the more precious it is, the higher a price you get for it. And the more common it is, well, the less valuable it is. And we have flooded the international market with the cocaine of monetarism. Cheap, printed money. Devaluing the American currency long term to give a few weeks or a few months of political cover to the disastrous economic policies of Barack Obama. I don't know why the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be an independent agency, has gone along with this so slavishly, but they have. And everyone who has a savings account and everyone who has property or assets will pay the price when the American dollar continues to diminish and diminish and diminish in value to the point where, God, I hope we don't get to the point where the Germans were in 1930 in the Weimar Republic when they had to take wheelbarrows to bring pay home and the money wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. What else will be a result of an Obama victory? Ongoing, continuous regulation. I've been harping on Obamacare again and again because you can't choose not to be alive unless you are in a terribly bad spot. You can choose to engage or not engage in most other forms of activity. But every form of activity that the government can contemplate seems to be being regulated by executive fiat, executive order, or the regulatory power of various federal agencies under the dominion of some czar, some unconstitutional manager. It's not America when you can't make the small decisions that go up, that come together to make a life. It's not a private business when you can't make the decisions about what to hang on your wall. It's not a private building when you can't decide how large your windows are or what type of doorknob you should have. And it's certainly not freedom when you can't decide what kind of food to eat and what kind of lifestyle to live without reference to a social engineer, a messianic pretender like Michelle Obama. We are being regulated to death by a government that has no concept of constitutional role and no tendency towards restraint. Private enterprise and private initiative are being smothered. You want to understand our future? Understand Greece. For every $3 that the federal government has borrowed in its entire history, one of those $3 was borrowed under President Obama. This debt will crush all private initiative and bring our children and grandchildren and ourselves in our old age into a state of serfdom to our creditors. And now we go to the overseas effects. As bad as things would be domestically if Mr. Obama gets another term, in the international scale, we are looking at something far worse. British Prime Minister Harold Wilson was once criticized for not protesting against America's involvement in Vietnam. And he looked his critics in the eye and said, with all of his sophistication and wit, you don't kick your creditor in the nuts. Well, who's our creditor? Who have we borrowed money from? Who owns us? The People's Republic of China. The Red Chinese, the butchers of Tiananmen Square, are our primary creditors. And what's the result? We can't build the F-22 Raptor stealth fighter, but they can. We can't maintain our Navy. They just christened a converted Soviet heavy aircraft carrier. We can't have a manned space program. They do. We can't maintain our roads. They're building an infrastructure so much more beautiful than ours, let alone more functional and modern than ours, that we're going to be outclassed in terms of roads, bridges, and electrical power by the Red Chinese. And it's not that the Chinese are neutral. For 100 years, from the 1842 Opium War to the 1949 victory of the Communist Party, Chinese have been taught for generations that there was a century of shame when they were under European dominion. Rook-see good, coolie China. A China humiliated, a China defined by the Boxer Rebellion. There are elements within the Chinese Communist Party and general staff that want revenge against that. And they also want to move the world from a Western-oriented planet to a post-Western planet. And the way many of them see to get from here to there is through traumatizing us. Doing something so shocking and so traumatic as to make the United States leave East Asia by choice, out of fear, or because we simply cannot project power anymore. However you want to slice it, they're going after Taiwan sooner or later. They're going to come across the Formosa Strait. The way things are going, they'll have military superiority not only on land, not only numerical superiority in the air, but qualitative superiority on land, air, and at sea. And they'll do it in a way that will humiliate us, that will shock us. The Chinese are not our enemy in the war on terror. They're simply bankrolling our enemies in the war on terror. They and their Russian cat's paws protect the governments that sponsor Islamist terror in the Middle East because they have similar goals. To eject the United States as the keeper of the peace in East Asia, as the Islamists want to eject us from the Middle East so they can destroy Israel and build a new caliphate. Both groups have a common interest. The defeat of the United States, its humiliation, its ejection from the world stage as a superpower. And that means the end, not only of our lifestyle, but the end of the hope of freedom for middle-class people who are tyrannized by their own governments around the world everywhere. The world, the people of the world who aspire to freedom, as well as the American people, cannot afford 4 more years of Barack Hussein Obama. Consider this. Consider it a cautionary tale, worth avoiding, and be well.